Hi, Ross. Thank you
Hello.
for turning up to Wordmill. Before we start, I'm just going to acknowledge that we are recording from one lucky duck in Woy Woy today. Thank you, Luca. Thank you for letting us use your space. So I'm interviewing, or not interviewing, just having a chat with Ross Seabrook from the Everglades Country Club, General Manager. So, Ross, thank you for coming again. I know your time's probably limited, so we're very lucky to have you.
Very lucky, yes. Well, it's great to be here. When Adrian asked me, I thought this will be something different. I haven't done a podcast. I've been interviewed before, but never a podcast. So I thought, yeah, I'll have a go at that.
How did those interviews go? Did you enjoy it?
Yeah, look, a lot of the interviews I've done with media have been sort of impromptu as opposed to planned.
Okay.
I think I've done one other interview where it was planned and we sat down. It was an actual video interview, which was pretty good.
Did you enjoy it?
Yeah, I did.
Okay. I'm going to ask you, where do you live on the Central Coast?
East Gosford.
East Gosford.
Yeah.
East Gosford. Oh, yeah. How's that to live? Is that a lovely area?
It's a great place. I've lived there for 24 years. Been on the coast for probably 27, 28 years.
Where did you come from before that?
Before that, we were in Sydney,
Whereabouts in Sydney?
Coogee.
Nice.
Yeah, so we lived there for about 4 years. And then my wife and I, wasn't my wife at the time, but we decided to, got married in 97 and then moved up to the Central Coast where she's originally from.
Okay. So that's your connection to the Central Coast.
That's correct, yes.
So how long have you been a general manager at Everglades?
Nearly 6 years.
What were you doing before that?
Before that, I was consulting. And so I sort of moved between consulting and running clubs. So consulting, prior to that, I was at Hexham Bowling Club for a few years.
Okay.
Prior to that, consulting.
What were you consulting?
I mostly do financial consulting, feasibility studies for hotels and clubs, as well as strategic planning, master planning.
Wow. Have you always done that? Have you always been in this line of work?
Pretty much. I had a 7-year stint at Newcastle University as an academic.
Really?
That's probably a bit over 20 years ago now. And
I've got a degree from Newcastle University.
have you?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Well, I introduced the tourism hotel program at Newcastle,
Right.
and so that was in '98.
Mm.
It was, and I spent 7 years there, and enjoyed academia, but once again moved out of academia into consulting, and then back into clubs, because my original career started in clubs back in 1980, which is a long time ago now. So I'm at the pointy end of my career, and I never intended to work in clubs, because generally people don't sort of say, "Hey, I want to make a career in a club."
Yeah, that's what I'm interested in. How did you get from, when you start your work life, you don't think I'm going to become a manager of a club. How did that progress?
Coming from Dubbo and in the early 80s, there were only a few universities available, so I needed to save some money to go to university, and so there was a job for trainee manager at Dubbo RSL, and I thought I'll apply for that, and that'll do me for 12 months, but I spent 7 years there, and became assistant manager at Dubbo RSL at a very tender age. I thought I knew everything back then, but I was quite a tender and inexperienced.
I think we all think we know everything when we're much younger.
Yeah, there's a nice little formula I try to look at, and talking about ability. And ability is a function of knowledge, skills, and experience. And experience is a critical factor, which a lot of people don't understand, because until you've sort of lived a longer life, you don't realise how important experience becomes.
Do you think that's undervalued these days in people getting jobs, perhaps?
It is. I think you've got an interesting sort of conundrum at the moment because you have the diffusion of knowledge happening so quickly
Yeah.
that how long does it take you to get experience in a lot of areas?
Pick one. Like what?
Yeah, I'd look at, say, uh, people coming out of university, and depending on what degree they're choosing
Mm.
and what career, there's a lot of expectation that when you walk out of university, you have a
Mm.
certain amount of skills and experience to be
Mm.
able to be employed. You look at job ads these days, and no experience required. Yet, when you dig deeper into the ads,
Mm.
the expectation is that you've got to have been trained. You've got to have some worldly experience. I find that especially with my children, when they started looking at work, it was, well, how much experience do you have when you're coming straight out of school or straight out of university?
Mm.
I think there's a false expectation from a lot of employers to have an employee be able to do a lot of uh, work as soon as they come into a job.
Is there a generational gap, I suppose, for want of a better word, or delineation, a mark where younger generations have different expectations of when they enter the workforce?
I think they do. It'll always come down to the personality of the
Mm.
person, because we employ a lot of young people where we are, and they're great kids, and they have a lot of lot to offer,
Mm.
and you can see different employees show different aptitudes, different expectations. Some will be the experienced guy because they've spent 12 months working in a cafe or at McDonald's.
Mm.
So they immediately think, hey, I could do the manager's job, I could do the supervisor's job. And I don't think that's anything new. I think that's something that's always been there.
Yeah.
But you also find other young workers who value getting knowledge, getting training, and the opportunity to expand their horizons in a workplace. We have a lot of guys who are studying who work with us.
Mm.
Some of them have come on full time, and they're still at a point where they realise there's a lot more to the industry than you see on the face of it.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of people don't realize that.
No, they don't.
Mm.
They don't, because it's not a discipline that you acquire through university study. And even though there has been attempts in the past to create club management degrees, they've sort of faded away because of the demand for them. It hasn't been there. But what you find is that most managers will either come through the ranks,
Mm.
started the front-facing employee behind the bar or in the cellar or wherever, or they may be an accountant, and gradually they get that experience in the broader area of the club, and through promotion.
Is it hard to, generally speaking, not Everglades Club, or could include that, hard to get good managers?
It is. What I find, and I have found for some time, there is a dearth of middle management, and they're the critical employee because they drive the culture,
Mm.
they create the environment you want,
Mm.
and if they don't have good people skills, they don't have the experience and also the technical skills to be able to do the job, it reflects then on the ability of the organisation to
Mm.
deliver the outcomes you want. So developing good middle managers is always the I think the secret to getting a good business at the operational level.
Right. Because I've worked in some places where general managers have chosen badly the people they want for middle management, and they've chosen them. The ones they've chosen badly are the ones that they like or they think they have a personal connection with, not necessarily the right person for the job.
Yeah, I we all make poor judgments in
Mm,
our professional lives, whether it be in who we employ or a decision. We base it on the information we have at the time. We think, well, that's a good decision. And
mm.
then after a while, we can review it and go, well, maybe the employee wasn't honest with
You
me.
say, okay, I'm going to dig my heels in and go with this bad thing.
And then you don't want to be prove it wrong.
Yeah.
So you keep trying. And then in the
Yeah.
end, you just go, no, this is not working.
It's much better to cut it off straight away.
Exactly.
Like as soon as you see it, it saves a lot of grief, I think,
And
later.
and look, at the moment, your selection pool isn't great as well.
Are you talking about currently?
Currently.
Really?
Yeah.
Why is that?
There's a lot of people have left the industry since COVID. A lot of
Yeah.
people have left the industry,
Mm,
and we've lost a lot of experience.
mm.
And you end up with a smaller pool to choose from,
Right.
and sometimes you take the best on offer that isn't the ideal person that you want.
My husband used to say you can only row with the oars that you have.
Exactly.
So yeah.
Yeah.
So we found that. I used to have a business and cafe, and you'd be so disappointed, but you need people. And like you said, we didn't have much choice. And he would always say that you can only row with the oars you have.
That's right. But yeah, it's very interesting, the whole human resource environment.
Mm,
And we went through COVID came out of COVID looking at the type of employees we needed, because our business, our food and beverage business, doubled in size from 2022 to now.
mm,
And that was coming just out of COVID and having to find new employees.
mm,
And it was very difficult to get experienced people who wanted to work in a club,
mm.
not just from front of house, but also kitchen staff.
Yeah.
Very difficult. Yeah, you put an ad out there and you might get 2 applicants
Really?
with any experience and
Mm,
training. You go, wow. And somehow we managed to get through it.
mm.
And we're finding it's now just starting to improve.
Right.
But it was a really difficult circumstance. But I was going to expand a little bit on the issue that you have with employees. And there's a term called the psychological contract, which relates to how an employee contracts with the employer.
Mm,
And there's all these theories about, well, traditionally you get a job, you stay with that employer for 45 years, then you get the gold watch and you retire.
mm.
And then we went through this process where a lot of large organisations slash their workforces through productivity improvements, through technology, etc. So there was this change in the attitudes between employers and employees that, hang on, the employer is saying, well, I'm not going to be loyal to you and you're not going to be loyal to me. So then you start to see employees create protein careers where they're just moving around to different workplaces, getting a set of skills which they can use across different jobs. And that in itself created this issue of how can we get loyal employees? Because when you look at businesses, successful businesses rely on loyal employees. That's what reduces your cost of
Yeah.
labor, increases your productivity. So on the one hand, you've got a culture where more and more people are not wanting to stay with one employer. They want to get more experience. They want to move around, especially if you're a younger person. And on the other hand, you've got an employer who desperately needs to have a loyal employee base to drive a good business. And that's where it's...
So how do you get loyal? people?
Well, you've got to get employee satisfaction.
And what does that involve?
Well, I look at it from like, how are you treating your employees?
Mm.
It's not always you look at the different theories on employee motivation, employee satisfaction,
Mm.
and are they going to stay? Are they going to leave? Some will, of course, be driven by money, but that isn't the solution. The solution is the right culture and the right working environment, taking an interest in the employee, making sure the employee has the resources to do the job, that they are rewarded and recognised for good performance. So that's always the soft elements to employee relationship are often the most important aspects. Don't treat them like a number, treat them like a person. And that's not always easy to do when you've got 90 employees, especially in large organisations, but you've got to then diffuse that through your organisation. This is where middle management become really important in larger organisations, because they are the managers who are driving that culture and creating that environment that will keep employees, or they will drive them away depending on how they treat the individuals.
I totally agree with that.
And then we have a situation now where the role of a person who works in a club has changed dramatically from the same role, say, 20 years ago. So we employ bar attendants, we employ gaming attendants, and they're casual and they might earn $25, $30 an hour. Yet the responsibility now placed on those employees for responsible service of alcohol, for now advanced responsible conduct of gaming, and a lot of them sit back and go, well, you know what, I just don't want this.
That's what I wanted to ask you. You've been in, let's call it hospitality but your management for a while, and we've seen the changes come in over time, including being responsible RSA and RCG, and all that sort of stuff. How has that affected, like, your club or clubs? Is there less people coming in, less drinking? Is it an improvement and less violence? What has changed?
It's what we see is a better quality environment in the pubs and clubs that we now have. What I mean by that is, when you look at how you deliver your products and services, you've got to move with the expectations of the customer. And the customer gets conditioned through social media, through programming as to, hey, this is what my expectation is when I go to a restaurant, or I go to a bar. So the consumption of alcohol, yes, you're still going to have your binge drinkers and that type of environment, but you don't see a lot of nightclubs around anymore.
We don't see a lot of nightclubs.
Maybe it's because
So what happens to
so a lot of people, younger people, will either, and just looking at my reference groups, and they do go out, they go to pubs, and they're no different to what we probably were. They will still.
I like how we were.
Yes. There was,
we're talking about the 80s, 70s, 80s, 90s even. We did a lot of crap.
We did.
And we suffered a lot and went back and did it all again.
Yeah.
Young people today don't tend to do that. And if they try to, they'll be like, I've said to other people I've spoken to on here, be videoed on and put on social media and held up for the rest of the world to see.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure how I feel about that.
Yeah, it's, you look at how you grew up and the things that you have done, whether you look back in hindsight and you go, well, I really didn't do the right thing there. I could have been better here. But that's experience. That's growing up. You learn from those. And I learn a lot more from my mistakes than I do from
I think we all do. Yeah.
And so that creates resilience, and it creates a mental
Mm.
toughness, I think, in how you conduct yourself. And it's so hard for kids today to create that resilience.
That's what I think. It's they don't have the opportunity to.
No. Like getting back to the environment of a club. Now I've seen the business side of, say, random breath testing coming in,
Mm.
and the immediate impact of on liquor sales of random breath testing. And so you have to adjust your business.
Mm.
And so the low alcohol products came out.
Yeah.
There was certainly less consumption, but it it took a long time for the consumer to accept that that's the law.
Okay.
They were still quite happy to run the gauntlet. And,
Is that with drink driving? You're
yes,
talking about that?
yeah.
What about and behaviours in the club as well?
I don't think random breath testing or drink driving really was correlated to the behaviours in clubs. I think
Oh,
it came more with RSA. You started to see
all right. Yep.
changes in expected behaviour, and the way that someone conducts themselves in a club or a pub these days is very controlled.
Mm.
They are, and that the staff and managers have this
It is.
requirement.
And I think your club's good because I go there sometimes. And I used to have a great time back in the day when it wasn't so strict as well. But I think your club's good. I went to my sister's wedding in New Zealand. We went to have a drink before her, just a few girls, her friends and me, and we went to the casino there, the Auckland casino, and we hadn't had a drop to drink. We were just happy, just happy, just
Yep.
having a few laughs. We walked towards the bar, and they refused to serve us because we'd obviously been drinking, and we hadn't touched a drop. We just arrived. So,
And I've had experiences where staff have made mistakes with people with disabilities,
oh no,
and that's so embarrassing.
that's hard. That's a hard call, though. That's very
It is,
tricky.
but you're expecting young kids
Yeah.
to make a judgment call
Mm.
and not understanding it.
Mm.
And this is where it's so frustrating because
Experience comes into play again.
yeah, I look at the high level society and go, well, we are governed more today than we've ever been.
Yes.
You look at the number of public servants we have,
Mm.
and we are a service economy. Everything's service oriented. Even public service is supposed to be service oriented. And so the public service have got to substantiate their
Existence,
roles,
yeah.
existence. So how do you do that? Well, you create laws, you create regulations. And if you look at the regulatory environment, how it has grown, and you say, well, the level of enforcement, the level of regulation, has that been overdone?
Do you think so?
Are we getting the benefits that we should have? Well, you look at the New South Wales government,
Yeah.
and the lockout laws and what they did in that area, and now they're backtracking and going, oh, now we need to have vibrancy laws to create a better environment for so get people back out.
Mm.
So they chose to, and rightfully
What,
or wrongfully, because
what did you think of that time when all of that was happening?
well, the whole basis was around antisocial behaviour.
Yeah.
Associated with alcohol, but more and just as much associated with drugs.
I worked in King's Cross in the 80s and saw a lot of that behaviour.
Yeah.
And I know it was wrong, but I feel that we've lost something.
Yeah.
Anyway, carry on.
Yeah, it isn't, but it's you. Once again, you look at any industry.
Mm.
There are going to be positive and negative externalities, no matter what you look at. You look at motor vehicles. they introduced a range of different traffic laws, road safety regulations in order to curb the road toll, and it's done its job. But we've seen a rise in deaths on roads again, even though they've put all this work into making cars safer than they've ever been, roads safer than they've ever been. But you're always going to have negative externalities. You can't remove them. They're going to be there because of human nature. Whenever you've got human nature, you're going to have.
So should we have a fatalistic approach? But what we've got is a political stance or considerations rather, and the two don't. You could always try and legislate, bring in laws to do something or other, but we are just always going to behave the way we behave.
There are, at the end of the day, it's still going to come down to the individual, and individuals need to take responsibility for the actions that they have. Now, unfortunately, often the actions of individuals aren't done in isolation. They have an impact on other people, and so it's minimising the impact on other people that one particular person's actions.
Yeah.
So that's where it's difficult. But I look at it and go, well, and if you look at the evolution of clubs and hotels, what I look at is they are such an important part of our society. People don't understand, I guess, how much impact they have, because just our club alone, nearly 1 in 2 adults are a member of our club on the peninsula.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
If you look at, we've got something like 14,000 members, and you've got about 40,000 adults over the age of 18.
Wow.
So, 1 in 3 to almost 1 in 3.5 are members. And that's the same with most clubs because they're multi-membership.
Yeah.
So it's not just the what they do; it's understanding the workings of the club and how much a part of society they are. And I didn't realise it back in the late 80s to early 90s when New South Wales clubs were the only industry had poker machines. So no other club, pub or casino had poker machines. Outside of New South Wales.
Yeah.
So then in the late 80s, early 90s, we started to see casinos and the pubs and clubs gradually get poker machines. Now what that did was it opened up public scrutiny of gaming machines because they're owned by private citizens or public companies. So the disclosure requirements for gaming became more publicly accessible.
Right.
And that led, of course, to looking at impacts of gaming and so forth. Then over time, we started to see the dangers and the problems associated with gaming. And whilst it's only represented a small percentage of the population, it's seen as the health impacts, the impacts on other people and the multiplier effects that it has, and that has to be addressed. But if you look at, let's say you look at clubs and pubs from 2005 to now, so 20 years, what we've seen is the number of clubs dropped by about 28 to 30%.
Well, we've seen that here on the peninsula, haven't we?
So what we see is amalgamations or closures.
Yeah.
And then you see the number of gaming machines and in clubs has dropped by about 15%.
Yeah.
Revenue from gaming machines in the same time has gone up by about 26%. But if you look at it, everybody goes, wow, that's a lot. But it's only 2% a year.
All right.
It's only a bit over 2% a year, which isn't even at economic growth level. So it's stabilised. It appears to be a big number.
Yeah.
But if you look at pubs gaming has increased by about 7% a year in that same time frame.
Really?
And they've got a small but they've come off a small base as well.
Mm.
So if you look at how the industry is evolving, and we get back to the negative externalities of gaming and who pays for it and whether we need to reduce those negativities. And at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what it is, the taxpayer pays for it, or
Yeah.
individuals pay for it.
Mm.
We can, so if we have to invest in harm minimisation strategies, which we have to do, then if that can't be absorbed in your current structure, that adds a cost and a layer to that structure. So how do you then reduce the impacts and make sure that you're still a viable business? You need to pass on the costs to the member,
Yep.
the customer. It's the same in anything that goes on. You still have to pass it on. And now we're going into another phase now where if you look at Star City and their problems,
Were they being closed down?
they were on the brink of going broke.
Yeah.
Now, if you look at the underlying reasons why it's happened is because they didn't adhere to AML-CTF requirements. Then the carded play came in. It was only on the casino. So the changes that have been legislated or prosecuted on Star has nearly caused the 8,000 people lose their jobs, but also the business to go broke. But that's just sort of the point business at the moment for the industry, because come another 2 or 3 years, you'll see mandatory carded play in most clubs and pubs, but it's part of a wider movement towards cashless society. And that's a wider concern, because if you look at the AML-CTF program, it starts out, well, we want to stop money going to terrorist organisations. We want to stop money laundering.
Yeah, I'm one of those people that is very anti-cashless society. For me, it's about control.
It is.
And I don't. We're controlled a lot already. I saw what happened during COVID when in Canada they were stopping the truckers who wouldn't work or didn't want to work, their money, from them getting their money, so they couldn't pay their bills. And I know that there was a GoFundMe made for them, and the government also stopped that money from getting to them. So it's a very scary thought.
It is. And you've a lot of small businesses still operate on a cash economy.
As they should, and I hope they keep doing it.
And you'll find that if you get to a point where it's cashless, small businesses won't operate.
That's right. That we gotten away with.
I think we're heading in that direction now, where the level of red tape, legislation, control over employees and employers has reached a point where small business, it's just becoming too onerous for someone to want to go into a small business.
I think it already is.
Yeah.
Yeah, and our government and the banks have a lot to answer for that. And I know it's all about control, and I know it's about getting more money, and it's not. It's about catching every little fee and tax that people should pay, and people shouldn't rot the system. I understand that, but the level of control is too much.
Yeah, and it's interesting when you look at that, and it gets back to bureaucracy and the top heaviness of bureaucracy to control that, because they've got to substantiate their roles. So if you have the multiplier effect of a cashless economy, it's efficient.
It is.
Versus government control, where it's inefficient. So the distribution of income in an economy is more efficient when there's less regulation than when it's regulated. And also not saying that a total cash economy is good.
Mm.
It still has benefits to an economy, which sometimes we lose sight of.
I think I have my own philosophy. There's perfect and things that run really well, but I believe that you must always have a hiccup. You must always have something ugly. You must always have something that's not quite, perfect. I also believe in human ingenuity, that if we do become a totally cashless society, there'll be other ways people will subvert the system,
Yeah.
which will happen, I believe. I'd like to believe. Because if it doesn't happen, there's going to be a point where it has to give. And we don't want to be at that point where something has to give. We don't want a totalitarian government or system where we're controlled in every aspect of our lives, where this is leading to.
Yeah.
So, something will give if that happens.
Yeah. It's on the one hand you have governments at all levels who are trying to encourage entrepreneurship. They're trying to encourage economic growth. Uh, we've had it very lucky for 20 years almost. Or if you go back, the last recession we
Longer,
had,
actually.
recession was the early 90s.
Well, for Australia, I think it's
And I think
looking on a worldwide scale, and I say this to my husband, we've been lucky since after World War II
yes.
till now, or till the last, 10 years
If you look at from an economic
point of view, yeah.
perspective, the early 1990s was the
Mm.
last recession we had. So we've really enjoyed really good economic time. So a lot of the processes put in place could be managed.
Mm.
But now when you're suddenly in an environment where we need efficiency, we need to improve how we operate,
Mm.
and the costs now being borne by businesses.
Well, it kind of blew out during COVID, didn't it? It really blew out.
Yeah.
And now they're trying to get back, I suppose, much of what they lost or was spent during COVID.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not an easy situation to be in. I wouldn't like to be either.
Speaking of, what do you think of Trump's tariffs?
Look, the US had an industrial issue before tariffs came in.
Mm.
If you look at their car industry, they didn't respond to the type of cars that were needed back in the early 90s when they went from big cars to small cars.
Yeah.
And demand for smaller cars from imported cars increased. So
They just couldn't do it, though.
that's right, they couldn't. So, you bring tariffs back into the system. It's just inflationary and it has further impacts. But I can understand why they have their ideology behind it.
Yeah.
And I can understand if you look at the way China has managed to manipulate tariff regime and China is still working on with the WTO on historical trading arrangements, even though their whole economy has completely changed since then.
Yeah.
I can understand why they want to rein in China. So for us, we look at I know I'm not an expert, but you look at we said during COVID that we shouldn't rely on China because of the impacts that we were importing so much from China, and all of a sudden we couldn't get all the products that we required. But we seem to still have that requirement, that need for Chinese goods. So how do you ensure that you can have trade throughout the world and your own economy
Mm.
is going to be able to survive. Look, I like the way we say, well, we want to have our own industries. Well, what are we going to produce?
Everything that China's producing at the moment.
You know,
No,
But-
that's just a throwaway remark.
but how can we when our so
we got rid of those industries a long time ago, so we just don't have the infrastructure to get on that straight away.
Well, you look at Australia; it's isolated from the rest of the
That's
world.
true. Mhm.
So the cost of exporting
Yeah.
is expensive. Our labour cost
Mm.
is high.
Expensive. Yeah.
So how are we going to compete with low cost economies?
Mm.
How do you compete? That's why we have no industries. We rely on external industries.
Yeah.
And so then we say, well, okay, what can we now produce that will be in demand somewhere else?
Coal.
Well, that's where we unfortunately, that's our biggest export, our resources.
Mm.
And then we're not.
We're not leveraging them enough. We're not getting enough for them.
Yeah.
There's a lot wrong. I haven't looked into it properly, but Australia's losing out on exporting those as well. I've got to look into this more. I didn't think we'd be having this discussion, so I didn't really.
No, I wasn't sort of segued into that. But it all has sort of intertwines into it, your economy and your industry in one way or another.
But I've also think, but I'm not sure, that China's in all sorts of trouble at the moment, which of course they'd never admit to.
Yes. Yeah.
In so many different ways. So it'll be interesting to see how the dust settles with the tariffs and what it will reveal about what may be happening around the world.
Yeah, it certainly came from left field for a lot of people.
Oh, people that wanted Trump in?
Yeah.
Yeah. There didn't seem to be any diplomacy.
That's not one of his strengths.
Yeah, it may be a little bit of, it seems, but I don't know, a little bit of naivety in it as well, but I really don't know. It just may seem like that, but it may not be like that.
Well, he hasn't got to where he has by being.
Yeah, true. That's what I keep thinking. This can't be. There's got to be something more or some other goal or aim or something. Yes, you're right, because he wouldn't be in the position he's in if he wasn't a very smart man.
Yeah.
I'm going to just change the topic for a little bit. Golf. You have golf, which is, the golf club is part of Everglades Country Club. Do you play golf?
Not very much, not very well.
Oh,
I run a golf club and I hardly play.
I was going to ask you about the fascination for golf. I've never played, and I know people get really.
It is.
What is it?
It is addictive.
Yeah, and I want to understand, why is it addictive?
I think because you can never conquer it. It's always a challenge. So you can play, as we saw in the Masters. It's probably, when you reach that level, it's more mental than it is skill.
Okay, I still don't get it. I still don't. I suppose I'm the kind of person that when it gets too hard, I walk away.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't stick it out. Like, I did try and hit a golf ball once. I tried to tee off and I ended up hitting the grass.
Yeah.
In the grass. And then when I really did concentrate on the ball, it just fell about a foot in front of me.
And there's so many tips and ways to do it, and take a bit of this, a bit of that. It still doesn't work, and it frustrates you. And you think,
is that how you felt?
Yeah, well, you might have one good shot. You think, okay, I can replicate that.
Yeah, and it was a fluke.
It just doesn't happen. Even though you think you've replicated it, it still doesn't happen. And then you just might take your eye off, your head might move, and sure enough.
Yeah, I've never understood that.
So, look, we have some really good golfers in
Mm.
our club, and they've been members for a long time, and they they'll still play 3 and 4 days a week and love it. So they know what the addictiveness of it is.
What sports do you like?
Oh, I used to follow a lot of.
Play? Did you ever play any sport?
I did play,
Is golf a sport?
yeah, golf sport.
Okay.
I did play a bit of soccer / football when I was a kid,
Mm.
and that was about all. I really played a little bit of cricket, but not much, and that was about it.
What do you like watching now? What's your sport
Well,
that you like following?
I actually don't follow much sport anymore. I used to. Sorry, I grew up in Dubbo, where it was very much a rugby league area.
In Dubbo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I followed rugby league for a long time, and even up until mid-20s, I was
Yeah.
quite into it. But these days, whilst the game is better, it's also mechanical, if you like. So I don't get the enjoyment out of the level of professionalism you now have. I don't like the technology that they rely on. It's actually slowing. It slows the games down. You know, you look at, say, there's a problem when you've got, say, in the Premier League where they can take 3 or 4 minutes to determine whether someone is offside.
Oh.
You know, you go, that's not what the intention of it is. So
I used to like League in the 80s.
Mm.
I think that's the last time I enjoyed watching League. I like Union myself, but I like both. And I used to really enjoy League back then, and over the years just don't enjoy it as much because it does seem mechanical.
Yeah, I mean the skill level is incredible.
Yeah,
they're just amazing. The athletes of today.
Athletes, yeah. Have you heard of who's that runner? Gout.
Mm.
Have you seen him?
Yeah, incredible.
Yeah, he's amazing. A little birdie told me also that. How many children do you have? You have
I have 4 at home at the moment.
4 at home. How many do you have altogether?
6.
That's a lot of children,
Mm.
which is really nice. Wish I had a big family. And one of them sings. Someone told me they're a singer.
She's not bad.
She's not bad.
Yeah.
Is she going to be one of Australia's future voices?
I wouldn't. I don't know. It's look. She's written. She does musical theatre, and she goes to Palm, and she's been learning to sing since she was 7, and she has quite an incredible range.
How hard is it in the music industry these days for?
Very hard.
Yeah,
very hard.
Because it doesn't. From what I've read, it doesn't necessarily go on talent.
No,
it
doesn't.
Yeah, it's just something that big companies would rather market.
Yeah, look, it's like even sport. It's like a lot of areas. There is politics, nepotism, which comes into play. I've seen situations where I go, wow, that was an incredible performance.
Yeah.
Yet others will get recognition.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
Fair enough. There's obviously a backstory there as to why that's happened, but the way she is persevering and
does she have a Facebook page or something like that where she's putting her music out? Or
we have it, but it's not. So what's happened is she's recorded 4 songs, but the final production we're not happy with.
Okay, because we can say here if she's controlling her own music and putting her own stuff out there.
She's not at the moment.
Not at the moment. I thought we could give her a plug on.
Yeah, well, we will. So she will go down. So we're now debating whether to cut ties with the original recording company because we're not happy with the final production.
Yeah.
And move in a different direction because at least their own songs and they're really.
The reason I brought this up is because I don't listen to mainstream music. I and I haven't done so for a lot of years, but there are absolutely fantastic people that I follow online that don't have associations with any, what do you call it, production companies or
Yeah.
recording companies. And that's where the talent is, these people.
Yeah.
That's where all the talent is.
Well, it wasn't as though she actually went down and pursued the singing career. She was really musical theatre oriented.
Yeah.
And a music producer saw her performance and said, "Oh, come along and
Yeah.
record." And the theory was, well, if you've got a brand name out there
Yeah.
as a singer, you'll get stronger offers in musical theatre, which you
Oh, right.
which you do see. You see some performers who are mainstream entertainers getting roles in musical theatre. And
This is hard for me to say. I like Jay Langaya. Do you know Jay? He's is he Tongan?
yeah, I know.
I'm not sure what he is. Yeah. And his children, some of them are in musical theatre. And because I really like him, it's hard for me to think that it may be nepotism. Not that they're not talented.
It's not. No, when we talk about nepotism, when you're the children of a successful entertainer, you're going to have a great
Opportunities.
opportunity to learn. And you're going to have the genes as well. So it's not as though you're not going to have the talent. It's probably more around the name gives you a greater in than a no name. So even though I'm not saying the person isn't talented,
Okay.
they will generally be able to leverage their name to get a role versus, say, the other 200 that are auditioning for a role. That's my perception of how it works.
Well, we're looking forward to your daughter.
We'll see how she goes.
When something comes out.
Yeah, we'll see.
I think it's awesome.
It's really exciting. She never ceases to amaze us every time she performs, because we went through the period where we were nervous because she'd sing a song and we go, "Wow, that is a really hard
Fantastic
song.
Yeah.
You think you can do that?" She go, "Yeah," and then she'd get up there and she'd blow us away.
Yeah.
We've gone from that nervous, will she not do it, to getting excited because she's now going to do it.
Wow.
That's good.
It's really fantastic seeing your kids succeed, or especially at something that they want to do and something they're talented at.
Yeah.
Those opportunities don't usually meet.
That's right.
You end up doing something else.
Well, they do. I mean, everybody has a dream.
Yep. Did you work other places before hospitality, before you got involved with the clubs? Or gone and done something else and then come back?
No, it's always been around hospitality. It was, as I said, I went into academia, but it was still around finance and hospitality. But it was all pretty much the financial side of it, which I ended up.
Have you had any unusual or funny stories happen in the club that you can share? Not the ones you can't share, the ones you can share.
Oh, look, I've got a lot of stories that I don't think I can share. We've had some real characters working, and just things that would happen, and you look in hindsight, you go, that was just
You can't tell us.
hilarious. But we had I won't mention names. We had
No names.
a particular manager in one club, and it was just after random breath testing came in, and he was a old digger, and because he used to have staffies each night, and he would have his fill, and then he'd drive home. Anyway, random breath testing came in, and he'd be doing the same thing. And we had a really lovely licensing sergeant.
Mm.
Anyway, he knew him really well, and he said, you know, you can't drink and drive anymore. Anyway, he just wasn't going to change. No, don't worry about him. So anyway, this went on. He pulled him up one night and said, you can't keep doing this
Mm.
in the car. I'll block your car, I'll drive you home. Second time he called him and said, mate, I'm going to have to book you.
Yep.
So he lost his license for 3 months. But the licensing sergeant would pick him up from work every night and take him home.
Wow.
Just about every night
You got
don't worry, I'll come and pick you up.
you got chauffeur driven.
Yeah. So funny little things like that.
Yeah.
We had one incident, it was the same manager, where there was a really nasty fight in the club. Anyway, we're trying to. So we didn't have security guards back in those days. It was just us as managers and bar attendants trying to break up this fight. And there was this rather large lady, and she was spurring everybody on in this fight. And this manager came in. He wasn't very big. He was only a little guy, and he's come down, and he knew this lady really well. And he comes down and he sort of pats her on the back and says, "Oh, now what's going on?" She didn't realise what. She turned around. She's just and he's because he was only small. He's just gone straight back, and he's just got up.
Oh my God.
Shaking his head.
Yeah.
And he just looks at me and goes, "I'll go and count the tills."
Oh no.
It was a really
Just that moment.
funny situation.
Was she contrite?
Oh, look, after she couldn't believe what she'd done.
Oh, that's so funny. He'd never try that again, would he?
No, look, just there was some funny times.
He's very good humoured though.
Oh, he was. He just
Yeah.
I looked at him. But yeah, there was some really interesting experiences.
Do you think so that still happen now or not at all?
No, not at all.
Mm. You miss those moments?
No,
Not at all.
no. I had another situation where, because in the early days, I'm working mostly nights, and they are nightclub oriented in this large club. No stress. Your security, and you're stressed out.
Yeah.
What's going to happen? What's going to happen? And finally, eventually I started running this bowling club where I had to go into to turn the business around. I thought, what could go wrong in a bowling club?
Those famous last words, are they?
Anyway, we had this guy come in, and I was in the office. I could hear this swearing, and I walked out, and there's this guy there, and he would have been about 6'5". He was this big lump of a lad.
Yeah.
And I went down and said, "Mate, what are you doing?"
Mm.
And he obviously wasn't quite right, because he was just swearing at all the old bowlers on the green. I said, "Mate, put your drink down. You've got to leave." And of course, he decided he didn't want to do that.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Anyway, I've managed to flip this guy over.
Flip.
But he still just got up and just kept coming, and just tables strewn everywhere, and I've managed to get him out. Oh, sorry, that's right. One of our contractors was painting at the time. He was painting, and he came in to help me. So we got him out. And it was a small community, so we didn't know him. He must have been new to the area, but all of a sudden we're seeing him all the time. And he was just threatening us. And at one stage when the painter was painting the outside of the building, we saw him coming running across the road. So he's climbed up on the roof and pulled his ladder up on the roof because we feared him.
Yeah.
He was just mad.
Yeah.
But in the end, I think, well, he's had a lot of chance to confront us, but he hasn't. So I think it was all bluff.
Yeah.
And in the end, I just told him to go away, which was fortunate because it was just one of those situations where it could have gone anyway.
Yeah.
And that's the sort of thing you'll often, back in those days, you would often fear the ramifications from, especially if it's a local community and certain people have reputations, and you go, oh, what are going to be the impacts? What can this person do? Because they know where you live and because you're part of the community. They're the things you don't miss. Fortunately, we've moved on.
I get it. Yeah. Wow. You don't, you never think of that, do you? Like, I don't think of that.
No.
When you're in a position of responsibility, and especially where a lot of people can come, you think, if you rub someone the wrong way, they could come after your house, your children, your wife.
Yeah.
All those sorts of things.
One situation where a patron was, he must have been on drugs or something because he wasn't.
Was that someone younger?
Yeah. He was indecently exposing himself in the club.
In the bathroom or in the club
in
itself?
In the actual
Oh,
club.
wow. That's ballsy.
Yeah, well, so we've gone and asked him not to leave, but we took him out the front and we're going to call the police. And so he's sitting on a chair, and I turned to him and said, look, stay there. Anyway, he leant back on the chair, and I've got both boots under the chin and knocked me out almost. I saw stars. I've never seen stars. I saw stars.
Sorry, how did he do that again?
He was on this lounge. He leant back with both his boots, and he's
lifted both.
He's kicked me. I wasn't expecting.
Kicked you with both feet.
Yeah, and so a couple of guys, but because of his mental instability, he was just ridiculously strong.
Right.
And we're trying to control this person. Anyway, the police sort of turned up, and we're sitting there. There's 4 of us on top of him. It must have looked so. This little guy, and we're on top of him, and we say, "Let him up." We're going, no, put cuffs on him first. We're not.
Yeah.
So they did that, but the irony of that was his mother wanted to press charges for us for assault, and my face is and blew up. What did I do? Yeah, and it was just that.
Did you press charges?
No. You sort of look at he didn't do that sort of thing.
Yeah, I know.
It's just different.
Do you wish it was different then, or you just got on with it?
Well, you see, that incident could still happen today.
Right.
Because he wasn't affected by alcohol. He had a disability. He was under the influence of drugs.
Yep.
And it could still happen even with all the regulations today.
Yeah.
It could still happen in a business. But the good thing is, in most cases, you have better trained staff to be aware of those situations.
And get on it a lot quicker and not let it get out of hand in that way, and ask people to leave. Yeah. Mental illness. Yeah, I've been on trains where people expose themselves, and happens everywhere.
Yeah, it does.
As a woman, you just learn not to look. Just don't look at it. Yeah. Okay, is there anything else you wanted? I'm going to wrap it up pretty soon. I like those stories.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting to to tell you war stories because there's quite a lot of them. But
You can tell us some more.
No.
They're the best.
no,
I've got a few from working in a nightclubs when I was very, very young, but I won't tell those because it's not.
yeah,
But some of the things that used to happen.
yeah. Look, I think that's whilst it can be a stressful environment, it's also intoxicating in getting you when you're working in those environments. Actually enjoy the job for some reason.
Is it like a drug or something like? Yeah, intoxicating is the right word.
You don't like the adverse situations, but every day is different. You meet so many lovely people in the industry and in the members. They become family almost. Everything you do, and you look at what the club as a part of society and how for a lot of members who come in, it's their life, it's their social.
Do you think that the club has taken the place of the public square?
Oh, for sure.
It is now the clubs.
Yeah. Yeah, we have regulars who just come in and you know everything about them. You know their lives. And that's the great thing about clubs. They have such a big impact on the community.
Yeah. And yours Everglades certainly did for me. That's where my in-laws used to love going for Sunday lunches. We used to go there quite often for Sunday lunch.
I mean, that's our biggest. You look at our business now. Our food and beverage is 50% of our income.
Wow, it's huge.
It is. Gaming only represents 32%, which for a club is
still.
It's still our biggest revenue earner, but in comparison to a lot of clubs where it can be up to 70%, it's very, very well diversified.
It'd be a very sad club if it was 70%.
Would be.
I think.
It would be.
Yeah.
But our golf is about 15% of our revenue.
I thought it'd be more.
Yeah, we don't have a high membership cost.
But that's based on nothing. I don't know anything, so
we're probably one of the cheapest. But it's all.
That's what I was saying to Adrian. Yeah.
But our golf course is really well patronised.
Do you ever let anybody just go for a stroll around your golf course?
No, because of safety.
Right.
It's a very small course. It's a tight course, so
it's
a very dangerous course, if you like. So you don't just walk around.
Okay. Because a friend of mine used to dislike golf. I don't know why. I couldn't dislike something if I have no experience of it. And said that it spores a good walk.
It's a lovely area.
Lovely area to stroll around.
Yeah, it is.
In golf, should just.
Maybe that's why they like getting out there and playing golf.
Maybe. Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you, Ross. Thank you for speaking with me. Thank you for your stories.
It was great. Thank you.